And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another victorious episode of the Assembly Call. As today, your Indiana Hoosiers defeated the Providence Friars 79-58 in the first round of the Asheville/Maui Classic. Nice game for the Hoosiers as they jumped off to a really good start, defensively especially, and really took the game to the Friars and took them out of any flow, and quickly jumped to a double-digit lead early in the first half and then maintained that throughout the half. There were a couple of points in the game where they gave up some of that lead, building the lead eventually to, I think, 17 points in the first half, whittled down to 13 at halftime. Coming out of the second half, Providence was a little charged up. Their coach got into them a little bit. The game got down to 12 at one point before Indiana pushed it out to a 21-point victory. Very good games from Trayce Thompson. We'll talk about that. Durham had a really good game. We saw some threes go in, better free throw shooting. So there's a lot of positives to take from this Indiana victory. Also, a few negatives, but we'll take the win, and we're playing in the semifinals of the Maui Classic. So I'm your host, the coach, Brian Tonsoni, here with Chat Mob Chad Schwarzkopf, and a cameo appearance, as expected, from Jerod Morris. And we'll break it all down for you on this edition of the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. And let's start this show the way we start every show, and that is with our banner moment.
And Indiana is the national champion.
When it comes down, Indiana will be champion.
Martin takes the shot.
The Hoosiers have won the national championship.
This afternoon's banner moment occurred in the second half after a first half of real questionable shooting from the three-point line when Durham hit back-to-back threes to extend the IU lead to 16 points and answering a three from the Providence Friars. Shooting has been a concern for your Indiana Hoosiers for several years now, and it continues to be a concern this year, but it was nice to see Durham shoot nice and easy and hit a couple big threes that really kind of stretched out the lead far enough that it took all kinds of hope away from the Providence Friars. The Indiana Hoosiers will depend a lot on the ability to shoot the three. Even though they have a good inside game, they have some penetration game. That outside game is going to make the difference between an outstanding year and a good year. It's good to see Durham get off on a good note. Our banner moment today, as always, is brought to you by our friends at Home Field Apparel, now in their fourth season sponsoring the Assembly Call. If we remember back when this sponsorship started, they were just little old Hoosier proud, serving Hoosiers and Indiana-related designs. Now, as you know, if you follow their entertaining Twitter account, they have unique and historic apparel for more than 90 schools. And you better believe that college sports nationwide will be spending tons of money at homefieldapparel.com this Christmas. And you know what? You should too. Because the best part about watching Home Field grow over the last few years is that they have never forgotten their roots. They are based in Indianapolis, they hire Hoosiers to work for them, and they still have the best line of IU apparel available anywhere. I assume you already have the famous Bison hoodie. You can also get our Assembly Call script logo emblazoned on one of their soft, comfortable hoodies, and they have so many other thoughtful IU designs to choose from. For me, the Assembly Call one has been through the ringer several weeks in a row as I wear that on most weeks. That's my favorite design, but I'm biased to this show. So whether you're shopping for the IU fan in your life or whether you have friends or family unlucky enough to cheer for other schools, Home Field will have you covered with something people will be excited to open on Christmas. And right now you can have big savings because Home Field is in the middle of their Black Friday sale. You get 30% off your entire order when you use the promo code BFAssemblyCall. So go to homefieldapparel.com, load up your shopping cart, and enter BFAssemblyCall at checkout to get 30% off. That's homefieldapparel.com. Tonight, we would like to dedicate this show to Bill Murphy and the Murphy family, who experienced a tragic loss over the weekend. Bill's wife of 47 years passed away. All of us here at Assembly Call and throughout Hoosier Nation send our condolences to Bill on the loss of his wife. I'm sure most of you know Bill Murphy, but if you don't, he is a former teacher and the IU athletics historian. He has written books about IU legends like Branch McCracken, and he wrote The Cardiac Kids, A Season to Remember, about the 1967 IU football team. He has shared his knowledge of IU athletics in so many other books and so many podcasts. You won't find a more kind, generous, knowledgeable IU fan out there. Bill is a great friend of the Assembly Call, and we send our thoughts and prayers his way this afternoon. Okay, now it's time to move the ball and find the open man and get some opening thoughts from the rest of our team. Chad, we're going to start with you. Your thoughts on the Indiana Hoosiers' performance this afternoon in the first round of the Asheville Classic.
Very exciting game to watch. The kind of Hoosiers that you've been hoping for recently, a team that hustled, a team that was aggressive, a team that didn't let up for the most part. I mean, we had a few struggles here and there, but in the offseason, everything we kept hearing and everything we kept thinking about this team was that they were a tough team. They were a together team. They were a team similar back to the 2012 team where they seemed like they were all together. They were always pushing each other in the offseason and workouts. Trayce Jackson-Davis said it himself that on Saturday shoot-arounds last year, you could rarely see one or two guys there. And this year, everyone's been there during all those optional shoot-arounds. And it shows in a game like this, where you can see they're playing together. They're playing like a tough team. They're hustling out there, and they want to be out there. They want to be wearing that jersey, and they want to play tough. So this is something that's exciting to see as a Hoosier fan, and hopefully is very sustainable, should be something that's sustainable. Obviously, a few negative points that we'll get to as we go along in the show, but overall an exciting outing and something that Hoosier fans can hang their hat on.
And also joining us is a very familiar face. We're glad to have him on the show tonight as a guest, Jerod Morris. Jerod, your thoughts on Indiana's second win of the season over Providence?
Hey guys, thanks for inviting me here. Thanks for having me. I do appreciate it. Look, we got to spend some time here talking about Trayce Thompson. He was terrific, as many people noted in the chat mob. If Ryan were here, he would be gloating and taking many victory laps because he's been predicting this kind of performance from Trayce for a long time. And what I love from Trayce is it was right from the beginning. The way that this game started, Trayce gets an offensive putback, one of his 8 offensive rebounds to score, and then on the very first defensive possession for Indiana, does a nice job recovering and got a block shot. And that really just set the tone for a day from Trayce that was extremely active and extremely assertive. We've wondered about Trayce. He's kind of been a garbage man offensively. Is he going to be able to expand his game? We saw him step up and take he had a little floater off of a nice dump-off pass from Durham. He had a couple of 13, 14-foot baseline jump shots. At one point in the first half, I thought I was watching Alan Henderson play. And that's not a comparison that I throw around lightly. And obviously, Alan Henderson did it for 4 years. You got to do it for more than 20 minutes for that comparison to hold up. But that's how he played. He was a monster rebounding. He was able to step out and make shots. He was able to be, I said assertive down low. You contrast that with Trayce Jackson-Davis today, who I thought really, Trayce just kind of played on cruise control the whole day. He wasn't bad necessarily, but he just wasn't great like we know he can be. And he was only 5 for 15. He was kind of putting the ball up soft around the rim. When Trayce got an opportunity down close to the rim, he was dunking it. He was putting it in, or he was getting fouled, and he had 10 free throws to Trayce's 2. And so I think that assertiveness from Trayce is really encouraging because we've seen it in flashes from him. But if he can be that guy consistently where he's just out there, he acted today like he was the best player on the court, both in terms of how he played and just the mentality that he had. And that's a great sign for Indiana. Plus, he played 35 minutes. And for a guy who has had the kind of durability issues that Trayce has had, some of the conditioning issues just from being hurt in and out, to go out there and play 35 minutes like that and be that good the entire time, nothing was more encouraging today than Trayce Thompson's performance. And if this is, even more than a hint of what we're going to see from him this season, this is a guy who's going to make a big impact on the Big Ten and changes the outlook for what Indiana can be. So terrific performance from him today in a game when Indiana really needed him, because Trayce, as he's done in some other games away from home in his young career, just didn't really bring it. But now if you got a guy like Trayce who can, that helps to compensate for that.
So let's continue to talk about Trayce, because I think that's probably the number one storyline of today's game. Is this might be known as the Trayce Thompson game, the breakout game, if it continues, and it needs to continue. We just can't have it one game. I'm sure Trayce has practiced for all these years, and he's wanted this kind of breakout game. I think this is going to be very consistent. Chad, your thoughts, what impressed you the most about Trayce today and his performance?
Just always being on the glass, being aggressive the whole entire time. One of the negatives, obviously, was our 3-point shooting. But that was in a way a non-factor because Race was down there gobbling up those rebounds and getting second chance points for us there. I mean, he ends up over doubling his best point total and getting his first double he's ever had in the Hoosier uniform. Again, we'll see that constantly, and it's like Jerod alluded to, when your star player has a bad day like he does, to have another player step up like Race did and fill in that gap is great, and it's a lot of relief for the team. But again, it's his hustle, his aggressiveness that we've seen before in flashes, and he just didn't have the overall awareness on offense or the confidence that we can see now. That confidence is there. He's ready to play. He's ready to step up. He's ready to take that ball when it's ready to be delivered to him. Last year, he kind of looked lost once the ball was passed to him, and he looked like he wanted to pass it away immediately when he had the ball. Well, this game, he was looking to the basket first and then looking to pass beyond that, and his stats show.
Obviously, his offensive game was just fantastic. That short jumper is key because I think it's going to extend to the three-point line too. If they're going to ever want to choose to sag in on Trayce Jackson-Davis, that that shooting touch will help quite a bit. But you brought up something, Chad, too, that his aggressiveness on defense too, and he was there. He was always the second man off the ground, which is a big thing for me. Is you're not going for shot fakes, and I thought our post players did a nice job defensively of just staying down and being the second guy off the ground and forcing some tough contested shots at the rim. And I also love the way he pursues rebounds. He just rips it down and goes with two hands, and two-handed rebounds are really a strong effort tells for me. And I just thought, as equally as his stat line was offensively, I thought he was pretty solid defensively. And then when he was switched on to big guy, I thought he did some banging too. Those guys are hard to contain to 0 points. They're going to score some, but I thought Race did a really good job equally defensively as he did offense. Jerod, any last thoughts on Race's overall game?
No, not on Race, but I do. I want to stay on the topic of defense because it's so easy in games like this to focus on the numbers and focus on the offense and all of that stuff. Because you don't often see the defensive stuff right there in the stat sheet. But I thought that Rob Finney and Armaan Franklin really played good defensively today. David Duke for Providence, he's a preseason all-conference guard. And he finished with 12 points. He was 3 of 12 shooting, 3 assists, and really just had trouble getting into the flow. And a big part of the reason for that is we kind of saw some of the old Rob Finney defense. He's not flashy. He's not going to pick up huge steal numbers, but he just is in the right position, keeps guys in front of him. And Armaan Franklin did the same thing. You could tell early that Providence was getting frustrated because they would try to drive on Armaan and he would be there to beat him before they could even, before they could get in the lane. Just good, solid defense. And, that's what you're going to get from those two guys. I think Armaan and Rob, numerous times today, we can talk about it later, but they kind of left me wanting a little bit offensively, from what they were bringing, even though, Rob ended up finishing with a pretty good stat line. But what those guys bring defensively and what, Armaan did as a rebounder today, that stuff's really, really important. And that's why Archie trusts them. That's why those guys play. And this was a game where, Indiana put up 79 points and some of the offensive numbers were good. This is a game where Indiana won it from the tip with really good defense and for the most part played good defense overall. And I thought Rob and Armaan really were key. Rob and spearheading the defense up at the top, and then Armaan just being real versatile and real tough on the wing. So I just want to give hat tips to those guys for really strong defensive efforts that set the tone, I thought, for what everybody else did.
Well, I think the big guys did a good job of keeping their feet, keeping in front of their men, and keeping them walled off from making moves on them. And what I love seeing on IU's defense that we go to quite a bit is the guards or the guys on the outside digging in while their players are trying to make a play or make a move, just digging in those little jabs or just making Providence's guys have to account for someone that might come in and try to stab at the ball. I love seeing those little moves because that keeps them off balance. And then Race staying tall and keeping his arms up. All their shots were off. They didn't get very many clean looks overall because the defense was so strong.
I think defensively, obviously Race is going to get the most of the conversation, but defensively, that story was incredible. You could tell by the off-the-ball intensity how they closed out. And the other thing was active hands. You're talking about digging in on drives, and we call that, pinching in your gap. closing the gap and recovering to your guy type stuff, but also the freshmen who get driven sometimes, they're still learning, but they're hustling. They have active hands. Trey Galloway's knocking things off. I saw Christian Lander get one deflection. And Geronimo, both in the first game and this game, very active with their hands. So you can cover up some deficiencies right now because the speed of the game off the bounce for those three guys is a little bit tough to handle, but yet they can still be solid, in being active with hands and disrupting the activity of the opposing team, and 2, rebounding. I think you can go in and get some rebounds if you're not a great on-the-ball defender right now. But defense set tone. How many times points off turnovers, 17 points off turnovers for Indiana versus 3 for Providence. Those things will help you score if your three-point shooting's off. And we ended up shooting 36% from 3 thanks to the banked-in 3 by Durham. But, yeah, Jerod, I think defense is going to be a real key when we look back on this game of setting that tone and letting us get into the flow offensively. And one more key storyline, I think, before we take our first break is the play of Durham. Chad, I thought he had a complete game, both offensively and defensively today, and really showed that senior leadership, that responsibility for production that Archie talks about came together today for Durham.
Yeah, I think so. Al showed like he did in the first game. There was a stretch during the Tennessee Tech game where they were kind of making a little surge back in the second half, and Al to be able to step up and make baskets at that point was good. And then his 3-pointers this game, he's really kind of become someone I think that we're going to see this season when chips are down or when we're having a little bit of issues. He's going to be one of those guys that we go to in those moments to calm us, to get a basket when we need it, to find the shot that we need. I think he's definitely going to be a go-to guy for this team as a leader.
And Jerod, they played him at point a little bit a couple times early or late in the first half, and then midway through the second half when Finney needed a break, they left Durham in to basically run the point, and I thought he did that well. But I thought this was an outstanding effort by Durham, really bouncing back from a subpar performance in game 1.
Yeah, there was actually a stretch for Rob and Armaan for the 2 guards, and Providence was pressing. It's like, okay,
scared me.
Let's see how this goes, and it went okay. Today was a good reminder about why you don't pay attention to what seniors do in opening games against 300-level opponents, because Al really never got in the flow of that game. And Tennessee Tech's defense was so bad, and the freshmen came in, and they were so kinetic, and everything was going fast, and it was almost like a different pace than Al's ever really played at IU, and he just never got into that game. Well, what you saw today was what a senior does in a neutral court game against a decent team, when Lander's not really able to get going, and Trey Galloway obviously had his moments, but wasn't quite as impactful as he was against Tennessee Tech. Well, here's Durham, not forcing things early in the game, just letting it come to him, and he picked his spots. I thought at the end of the first half when Indiana really had, 4 or 5 straight kind of poor possessions and Providence went on a little run, Al, stepped up, hit a couple of free throws to kind of stop the bleeding. And then he came out in the second half, knocked down those 2 3-pointers that you talked about, and just was rock solid. And this is what Durham needs to be, which is a guy that you can count on to score double digits, to knock down open shots. And then once he hits a couple and they start closing out on him, be able to attack the closeouts, get to the lane, and either get fouled or make layups. And that's what he did, and so I think the big thing from Al that we've been wanting is consistency. And so we saw one game against Tennessee Tech where he didn't really get in the game. Today he did. I would, very much heavily weight this game, as opposed to the Tennessee Tech game. Now, what's going to be important for Al is can he do it again against kind of high major competition again tomorrow? Stringing these together back to back to back. He doesn't need to go out and have 19 points, 6 boards, 3 assists, a great stat line. But he's got to be a guy that Indiana can count on for 12, 13, 14 points a game. And so really, really encouraged by what he did today. And I think, him doing that is going to allow a guy like Christian Lander to grow into the role. Allow a guy like Jerome Hunter to have an off day when you've got a guy like Durham that can just go get points. And, I know people have laughed because I use the hashtag honorable mention Al, and, I'm behind that senior guard again, like I was with Devontae Green. But this is kind of what I envisioned was this kind of game. Was Al, the second best player on the court, the second most talented? No. But what he did is he just, as a senior, knowing where to find his spots, knowing how to knock down open shots, just do those things that you expect from a guy like that. And if he can do that consistently, he's going to have opportunities. because now teams are going to have to focus on Trayce Thompson, and they're going to be focusing on Trayce. And there's, you got a guy like Trey Galloway that is attacking the lane so hard every time he gets it. There's just a lot more for defenses to pay attention to for Indiana now. And so Al is going to be a guy who's maybe third, fourth, fifth on the scouting report. He's going to get chances. And so when he gets those chances, he's got to step up and take them. And that's what I thought he did today without forcing it, took what the defense gave him, and was just really, really solid.
What a great stat line. L. Durham, 19 points on 6 of 9 shooting, 3 of 5 from the three-point line, 4 of 4 from the line. And for me, the impressive thing was 6 rebounds, which Archie had said was a major concern, guard rebounding. He went and did it, and 3 assists to no turnovers. So congrats, L, on a great game. Coming up, as we continue our breakdown of Indiana's victory over Providence, I will point out today's meaningful moment you might have missed, and then we will go inside the numbers to highlight the most important statistical notes from the game. You're listening to the Assembly Call. Stick with us.
This is Verdell Jones. What's better than an epic buzzer beater? The full court dribble and perfectly placed pass to set it all up. And of course celebrating with Hoosier Nation afterwards. So join Jerod, Andy, Ryan, and Coach on the Assembly Call after every IU basketball game. Go Hoosiers.
You're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm the coach, Brian Tonsoni, here with Jerod Morris and chat mob Chad Schwartzkopf, and we're breaking down Indiana's win against the Providence Friars in the first round of the Maui/Asheville Classic. And now it's time for today's meaningful moment that you might have missed. And we kind of talked about it a little bit in that segment in discussing L, that the lineup of L, Durham, and Armaan Franklin at the guards without any of the two supposed point guards on the floor. And I thought that was a key moment there to try to get through that pressing moment and maintain the lead. And it shows a couple things to me that there's a lot of confidence in L. Durham and his play. That he can play multiple spots and handle the basketball under pressure. And the other thing is that Christian Lander still is a process, work in progress. And he has some stuff to work, and Archie might not have trusted him quite yet in this atmosphere, or he saw something early that he just wanted to go in a different direction. And we'll just keep watching Lander's growth each game and each week. And by the end of the season, we believe that he will be a major participant minute-wise. But I thought that was an important thing. I also was impressed with the post-passing. We got switched up to a zone defense. The Friars went to a zone defense because they couldn't handle the man-to-man early, and there was some good passing on the perimeter. Getting the ball inside to the elbow against the zone is key, and then I think our posts are really doing a nice job of going high-low or inside-out for the kick-out shots. And so post-passing, we obviously watch the shots and the stats and that, but I thought there's a lot of hockey assists that were going on tonight too from our guys throughout the game. Chad, your thoughts on something that you picked up that we might have missed?
Well, it goes along with you there talking Armaan Franklin. I think there was a lot of grief during the Tennessee Tech start of that game when people saw Armaan Franklin had made the starting lineup. A lot of people kind of were giving him some shade on social media and everything, and didn't think he should be up there, and were a little bit surprised by that pick. But I mean, he showed a lot of good stuff, and he showed that he belongs to be in there. He's a very solid player all around. And early on, I was actually surprised at one moment. IU again was looking to get up every chance they had whenever any rebound that they got. And there was one defensive rebound that IU got. I think Armaan got it around the free throw line at the opposite side and started to take it down himself. And he saw immediately he only had 2 other Providence players against him. And he quickly turned on some afterburners that I did not realize he had and got to the rim very fast and laid it in nicely. He's got some speed on that drive that I was unaware he had in the open court. A lot of kind of the speed that we were talking about that Trey has as well. So, I mean, those 2 weapons of those guys driving on the fast break is going to be pretty amazing. But again, I think he had a solid game and deserves that starting position right now.
I think one of the best things Armaan does is push the ball in transition. And I really like the pace of this year's team. They're really trying to get out and go, and you got people who are running and winning their races to the offensive end, and you got guards that are looking to just drive the lane if they're not stopped and score. Jerod, something that you caught that some of us might have missed.
Yeah, so on that point, about Armaan attacking, there were two possessions late in the game. The first one was about the 4:25 mark. The next one happened after that. And so there were two straight possessions where Indiana had 3-on-2 fast breaks. And so on the first one, Rob is leading the 3-on-2 fast break. Al is on the right wing. Trayce is on the left wing. And, we botched it. And the reason why we botched it is that, Rob was just too hesitant. And so this continues to be, one of the issues that I have with Rob as a point guard on offense. He's very assertive, very confident defensively. But offensively, he continues to be more of a prober, and that's okay at certain times. And I thought, against Providence's defense today, it was fine. But that's kind of the difference, when you see what a guy like Lander does. And obviously, Lander really struggled today, but you can see it some in that Tennessee Tech game. He's an attacker. Trey Galloway is an attacker. Rob is a bit of a prober. And so, sometimes you get a 3-on-2 fast break like that, and you've got to just attack it. He didn't, we ended up having to pull it out. The possession resulted in Trayce, I think, getting blocked. He, kind of tried to force something up on the left block. The very next possession, and this may have been the play that Chad was talking about, but Armaan got a rebound and he just went. And it was a 3-on-2 fast break. And instead of kind of probing it and being patient, he just attacked it. And he made them step up. The two guys, they ended up actually taking the two wings that were flanking Armaan, and he just took it right into the lane. And that's one of the things I love the most about Armaan. His offensive game is still coming around, but when he gets a defensive rebound, he is getting a defensive rebound to push it and go the other way. And so that's something that I would like to see a little more of from Rob, which is when we get those open court situations and when we have the advantage, push the issue. Because I feel like sometimes we leave good shots on the table, on the floor, just because Rob is a little over patient. And I hope as he, matures more and gets more comfortable out there that he'll be able to do that. So that really stood out to me. And then, going back to what we were talking about with the defense, I thought today we saw a real enthusiasm about defense. Sometimes Indiana has played good defense, but it's been very mechanical, methodical almost. It's like the guys are doing what they're supposed to do and the system works, but they're not having a lot of fun doing it. I thought we looked like we were having fun playing defense today. And there was a moment in the first half about the 5:35 mark when Jordan Geronimo was on there and we forced that 5-second call. And the bench was going nuts and Archie's going nuts. And like they were having fun because of something they did defensively. And it was the defense functioning properly, and that was great to see because that kind of excitement shows that, hey, this is supposed to be a team that's identity is forged on the defensive end. And if that's going to be the case, then you got to be enthusiastic about what you're doing on that end, no matter what's going on in the game. I'm sure it's a little bit easier to be enthusiastic when you're up 10, 15 points, but I liked seeing that, and the bench all day just seemed really into it. And, we don't want to be the body language doctors here or anything like that, but there's something about watching this team play through two games. It feels like there's kind of a chemistry there. It feels like there's a togetherness about what's happening. Like there's just something visceral when I watch them. And so that's really nice to see because that has not always been the case with teams under Archie at IU.
And that's the key to good defense. That's the key to winning basketball games. And that's not a guarantee. You're going to have teams that are together that buy into your coach, and they're going to have a bad night, and they're going to kick the ball around, and Indiana's going to end up with a loss at some point. But they're going to be able to handle adversity a little bit more when they are together. You are going to be able to overcome, a lunge out and miss the pass, and then someone races to cover up and everyone else is flying around. It goes back to that deflection thing. Okay, you're struggling to guard the bounce, but you're reaching in, or when the guy picks up to make a pass, you're trying to make the next play. We talked a little bit about that in the last game, post-game show, making that next play. And this team just seems to be together, and it's got to stay together. It's a long season, playing time and points and all of those things can always creep in. But I agree with you. I get the vibe that this team is more connected together. And, boy, that's going to help on both ends of the floor if that continues. So Indiana wins the game 79-58. As typical Indiana fans, we get a little nervous when it got down to 11 or 12 a couple times, like, okay, when's the drought going to come? But that drought never came. Indiana always answered a couple of the what I call small waves of of attack or pressure from Providence by extending it out. Trayce Thompson got a nice tip dunk, a three-point play to move it back to 15, and the game was really never in doubt in the second half. But, Jerod, let's look at some numbers now. It's time to go inside the numbers. And what numbers stick out to you as being really impressive for the Indiana Hoosiers in their victory today?
When it comes to numbers, I try to always take my cue from the coach on what numbers to look at first. And by coach, in this case, I mean from Archie Miller. What are the numbers that he's really keying on? And I think the numbers that he's really focused on for this team are turnovers and rebounding. I think he knows that rebounding is going to be a bit of an issue, and especially when you're missing Joey Brunk in a game like this, you would expect it to be an issue. I don't have the percentages, but I know Indiana out-rebounded Providence 42-33. And Providence has typically been a very good rebounding team under Ed Cooley. Indiana gave up 11 offensive rebounds, but they got 15 of their own. And so overall, this was a solid rebounding game for Indiana. Some of the guards did a nice job rebounding. Durham had 5, Franklin had 5. Archie's talked about, can we get our guards to rebound? Today they did that. So that's very good to see. And the other thing that's great to see is only 9 turnovers for Indiana and 16 assists against those turnovers. And we had everybody except for Hunter and Geronimo who played had at least 1 assist, which really shows the ball movement, the passing. Like, this wasn't just Rob Finney going out and getting 10. This was ball movement and everybody sharing the ball and getting assists. And that's 16 assists on 28 made field goals. So that's a good percentage. So to me, those are the big numbers that stand out because it's the stuff the coach is really keying on. And that clearly is getting through to the players, at least in this, in their first early test of the season.
And this is against a Providence team under Ed Cooley, who's known for, being very scrappy and physical and known for their defense. They're a defensive-minded team. When they struggled early last season and made the comeback to probably being in position to make the NCAA tournament after a 500 start, they really relied on their defense. Yes, they had some good players that graduated last year and moved on, but they're defensive minded. So I really like that assist to turnover ratio in any game, but especially against a team that's solid defensively. Chad, the stats that stand out for you as you look at the box score.
Continuing what you said, I mean, it's those points off of turnovers, 17 points off of those turnovers. And then shifting kind of to the negative, one of the negatives that we had last week was the free throw shooting. And it was improved. I mean, it was better in the first half than it was in the second. I feel like in most games, you're going to see maybe a little drop off of that in the second half because legs and arms start to get a little bit tired. But ending 75%, while we should be making more, it is a lot better than this team has been recently and in the recent past.
You're a tough judge,
Chad,
man.
you take your 75% and you like it.
I'm absolutely, dude. Appreciate it. Every game, guarantee me 75%, and I'm a happy dude.
Hey, call me old school like Bobby Knight. I can't stand a missed free throw being left off that scoreboard. But again, I mean, it's overall. I think stats look great. Again, my one that I was going to say that Jerod took was exactly the assists, and not only the number of assists, but exactly how they were spread out, like you said, with Rob Finney, your main point guard, having the most, and then it being very evenly distributed throughout. The foul calling, IU did have a lot of chippy fouls there towards the end of it. And I think a lot of those calls we're not going to see once it gets into Big Ten play. I think things are a little bit more physical. So that's one thing I was excited to see, is that we played physical like that, and we played through a lot of that contact. But yeah, overall, again, 3-point obviously wasn't how we wanted it to be. 2 for 11 in the first half, and then 3 for 3 in the second half. Thanks, Al Durham, for helping that second half stat out greatly. But yeah, take what you can.
I'm going to talk a little bit about 3-point shooting and combine it with the stats and what you might have missed. I thought late in the first half, Indiana was 2 for 8, which isn't very good anyway, but I thought their last 3-point shots were too quick. Indiana had a nice lead, and they shot them quick. I think even one was off an offensive rebound kick out, and it was Galloway, Geronimo, and Lander. So sometimes your shooting percentage is off a little bit because the shots weren't the shots that you want. Now, I think they were somewhat open, to be honest with you, and those shots got to go in. If you're getting open shots, I said it last post game, hit your open shots. But two, when in the game, when in the shot clock, who on your team do you want taking them? I thought we got too sped up in the last 2 or 3 minutes of the first half. and our shot selection wasn't very good. And so sometimes it's a shooting problem, and until we get it fixed, it's still a shooting problem. I'm not trying to make excuses for it, but sometimes it's a coach going into halftime saying, listen, quit shooting these kind of threes. We're going to shoot these. And then the only one who took threes in the second half was Durham. He was 3 for 3, and the bank was open, at 4 o'clock this afternoon. But I think I don't know that we'll ever be a really great three-point shooting team, but if we can get some points off our defense, if we can get some play in the inside like we have from TJD and Race, taking the right three-pointers and hitting in the 30s will make this team real tough to guard.
Hey, Coach, one thing I wanted to add on the three-point shooting is, Rob Finney today was 0 for 0. And when we look at, this is obviously a team that is starved for proven three-point shooting. And Rob has been a guy who has struggled shooting threes off the bounce, but has really been good throughout his career to catch and shoot opportunities from three and shot it well against Tennessee Tech. I think we've got to find him a way to get 2 or 3 of those opportunities every game. And so actually seeing him not even take a three-pointer, I don't think that's good. And I don't recall him passing up a whole lot of open ones, but I think that is actually one of our more proven offensive skills is Rob making catch and shoot threes. I think we've got to find him opportunities for those.
And sometime what Archie might do is that's when eventually Lander's ready to play and you have both of those guards there. You could put him more in him and L together going off that little blocker mover action would be, kind of nice. But at least, again, I know Chad's a tough grader, man. I'm glad I didn't have him in class because I wouldn't have passed very much. But 35% shooting for Indiana, you guarantee that the rest of the year. I'm taking that along with the 75%. But I think the stats play out rather well. So let's talk a little bit about a couple guys that struggled today. Jerome Hunter gets in and gets into foul trouble, and Trayce Jackson-Davis has double digits and rebounds the basketball, but just played a little bit off kilter, a little soft, if you really are honest, where he wasn't really going through people. He's trying to go around and finesse things, and his only real physical play was that down the lane dunk. Jerod, your thoughts on 2 key offensive performers having off days and Indiana winning comfortably?
Yeah, I mean, look, if Trayce is going to go 5 for 15 and you're going to win against a good team, you'll take that. Yeah, and here's the thing for Trayce. He's so talented that he can put it on cruise control and put up a 12-7 with 3 blocks. So he still was moderately productive. And I think, it does show a sign of growth in a sense that last year when he would kind of put it on cruise control away from home, he would almost disappear from the game and not do anything. And today he can play a game that we're all disappointed in, and he still put up decent numbers. And that's good. I mean, if this can be the floor for his performance, where he is a little soft around the rim and he misses those shots, but he's still productive, you can live with that, because hopefully you have some other guys step up, and get your guys' thoughts on them. But the two, I want to talk about Lander and Hunter for a second, because you guys may think I'm crazy, but, they didn't do much. They didn't score any points. Hunter fouled out, 5 fouls. They clearly could not get into the rhythm of the game. But I actually saw some stuff from them that I liked. And here's what I liked. With Hunter, in the short time he was out there, he took 3 shots, and all of them were different. He took a nice shot in the post that he missed, but it was a really nice little post move. He had a drive from outside the three-point lane into the lane. He just happened to miss the shot, and he took a three-pointer. That's 3 different ways that he can score, that we know he can score, and he got in and he was assertive. He just missed the shots. But this is an offense that has lacked variety in ways that they can score. And Jerome is a guy that can score in different ways. So I was happy to see him get in, be assertive. He missed the shots and then he couldn't get into a rhythm. Fine. But you still see the glimmers of what is there from him offensively. And same thing for Lander. You can quibble with some of the shot selection. And yeah, maybe he shouldn't have taken that really deep 3 right when he got into the game. But what I love about Lander is that he has the confidence and the ability to take a shot quick off the dribble when he gets a sliver of an opening. This kind of goes back to what we're talking about with Rob, where he's more of a prober, not an attacker. He's not really going to take those shots and doesn't really show the ability to make them. Lander hasn't really shown us that he'll make them yet at this level, but we know from, his AAU and from his high school, just from the type of player that he was, that he can make those shots. And we haven't had a guy who is willing and able to take shots like that just off the dribble at any moment since Yogi. And that puts a lot of pressure on a defense. So again, it didn't come through for those guys, but I'm glad that they were aggressive. And those shots that they took, I want them taking those shots. Because frankly, we can win a game like we did today against, just a whatever Providence team on a neutral floor. But to compete for the Big Ten, to play against the best teams, we're going to need our most talented offensive players being aggressive and finding their shots. And Lander and Hunter are two guys who are going to do that. So it didn't come through today, but I think we saw some of the glimmers from them in what they can do and what they're willing to do that other guys on this roster just aren't. And I think that's going to pay big dividends down the road. And so I hope that they keep that, and I hope Archie, yes, you've got to rein in some of the shot selection with Lander, but it's nice to have to try and slow him down rather than speed him up. And so I think that stuff is all going to pay dividends down the road. I actually would have liked to see him get more minutes. I think at some point we've got to let him play through mistakes and build confidence. Today, he only got those 9 minutes. Maybe Archie was a little afraid of what was going to happen in the second half, but boy, I sure would like to see him play about 15, 16 minutes and be able to use an opportunity like this to just get him ready for the next game. Because if Indiana's going to go where it needs to go, that guy's got to be a big part of it.
Right now, it's defense with Lander. And, Archie's stubborn. All of our coaches are stubborn that he's got to trust him defensively. I don't think he minds those shots. I mean, yes, you will talk to a guy about having quick shot selection, but you got to be aggressive. Archie wants more aggression on offense. So the one play I liked is when he tipped the ball to himself. I mean, that just shows just a natural – tipped it and then took out on a fast break. Those are those things where you're talking aggressive, and Lander brings that. And the quicker he can get up to speed defensively and earn Archie's trust, the better we're going to be. But he's going to have to do that on a defensive end. Chad, your thoughts on Hunter and Lander, a couple guys that we're counting on that just struggled today?
Well, I want to speak on Hunter. I think Hunter is very similar to a guy that recently played for IU that used to wear the pinstripes. And that player needed to kind of have his first basket go in. He needed to see that first shot go in. And then we knew we had good games from him last year. Well, I think Jerome's that same way. I think we need to draw up once he goes in. We need to draw up a play, whether that's giving it to him on the block, which he's very good at, and doing his little fadeaway or his little hook shot. And if he can see that basket go in when he first gets in there, I think confidence is key with him. And if he can have that confidence, he gets that smile on his face like you always see on him. And he's excited to be out there and he's loving it and he's smiling every minute. And you didn't see that in this game. You didn't see that little light switch or anything out of him. I think there was a spark lacking from him, especially after it built up. One shot after the other was missed. And I think that's kind of what led to frustration in his game and led to the fouls and him coming out in that short period of time. So
and Chad, just to be clear, it's not pinstripes. That was
pinstripes. The player said it was pinstripes. I know.
So
okay. I'm making sure.
I just want everybody to be clear. That was
I know.
That was a great joke, a deep cut, but I want to make sure everybody knows.
Yeah, not over the head of many people. Yes.
Well, one of the things that we've talked about is this team possibly having depth that they haven't had before. And we had a couple guys who had off nights or not off nights. They just didn't get in the groove, and Indiana was still able to compete at a high level. So maybe that's some good news looking forward. So coming up here on the Assembly Call, we'll hand out our game balls and hit any other lingering storylines. Look ahead to Indiana's next opponent, and then it'll be time for Last Call. That's all next here on the Assembly Call. Stick with us.
Hi, this is James Blackman Jr. I never miss an open three, and I never miss an episode of the Assembly Call. Go Hoosiers.
You're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. Catch us live immediately following every IU basketball game, plus every Thursday night at our website, assemblycall.com. And while you're there, make sure you sign up for the free IU Hoops email newsletter. Over 7,000 of your fellow IU fans have subscribed. You can also text IU to 66866 to subscribe to the newsletter. That's IU to 66866. I'm the coach, Brian Tonsoni, and we're breaking down Indiana's victory over Providence in the first round of the Maui/Asheville Classic. And now it's time for our game balls. And we're going to go back to Jerod because he's the reason we're both here all the time. And we like having him around. So, Jerod, you get to give out the first game ball.
Well, no need to, try to be cute with this one. It's Trayce Thompson. He was the best player on the court. He was dominant today. He was good on offense. He was good on defense. And most importantly, he showed the shooting range that if he can continue is going to make him a lethal player. That's kind of been one of the big X factors for this team. Is Trayce or is Trayce? Is one of those guys going to prove that they can step out, and make jump shots? Trayce did make one today. He missed another one. But man, it would be nice if Trayce can step out and make 3-pointers, but even if he can just hit that 14 to 15 foot jump shot consistently, it is going to just, again, add another element. That's what I keep enjoying watching this team through 2 games, is this was such a limited offense last year. I mean, that's what made it so difficult to watch and so easy for opposing teams to game plan against, because you had a few things that you had to take away. And then what else is Indiana going to do unless Devontae Green goes nuclear from 3-point range? But now you're really seeing an offense that has a lot of different layers to it and a lot of different abilities and different combos and different things that can work in different matchups. What Trayce Thompson did today can work in any matchup. And if he does it, he played at an all Big Ten level today. So I wouldn't expect that from him every game. But if it's a preview of what he's going to give us this season, he was terrific. So obvious game ball choice for today.
Chad, your game ball?
In honor of the very hairy man who's not here with us, who was giddily watching this game while he eats his big bowl of cereal, it's obviously got to go unanimously. I'm sure Coach is going to head the same way to Trayce. Just as Jerod said, it makes IU have so many layers, and this team is and can be a nightmare for teams to scout because you game plan against Trayce, and now Trayce can come in there and put things away. Other players can step up on other nights. It's what we've preached about in past seasons and hasn't really panned out, but it's looking pretty good this season so far that the depth and strength overall of guys being able to step up each night is going to be awesome. And Trayce gets it tonight, and I think we'll have very many for him this year as well.
Yeah, I got to make it three votes for Trayce. It was just an incredible performance, double-double. Just seemed to be there every time IU needed a bucket or a rebound. When someone else missed a shot they might have made normally, he was there to clean up, and just what we have kind of expected over the years from Trayce Thompson. So congratulations to Trayce. And I haven't cleared this with Jerod yet, but I like to give a Mike Roberts award. We have some other players that do well in these games, and Mike Roberts can now be heard on the television yelling during the games because of the lack of fans. It just gets me so fired up. So my Mike Roberts complete game bulldog, it goes to Al Durham. He doesn't get the game ball because it's obviously a dominating performance by Trayce, but I got to mention that Al really played extremely well on both ends of the floor and really displayed senior leadership. So I just jumped in there and created my own award. Sorry, Jerod.
I like it.
But it was fun to hear Mike Roberts. Let's talk one last thing. We're always going to be talking about the freshmen. They come in as a class. They play together. We bring in Geronimo. Today, I think, was one of those games where I don't know that they're ever going to fill up a stat line. Yes, double digits for Galloway in game one. But they're able to hold their own, and they're able to do some things that contribute to the win. Chad, your thought today on the play of the freshmen who are a key component to Indiana's depth?
I think they did well when they were in there. Would have been nice to see maybe Leo get in there at the end a little bit. I would have wanted to see him get a few minutes to see what he did. Trey does great on getting out in the break and everything like that. And I think we've seen, because he's done it in 2 games, and there's been a wonderful picture posted of him doing it. He loves that reverse scoop. And I think that's going to become maybe a trademark of move of his as he runs the baseline. It's something he's going to be able to utilize. But yeah, Jordan as well came in and did some things. I don't think he's going to be a major scoring threat, but I liked that he was willing to pull the trigger from 3. And he was able to use that crazy length, arm length that he has and gobble up a few rebounds here and there. And then, like we've said, we've already talked about Lander here and there. I think it's just a defensive side for him, but I think it was an above average for what you would think a college freshman would do in a standard game. Nothing that you can really point to in this game with any of them, at least thinking off the top of my head right now, and go, oh, that's just a freshman mistake. I haven't had that feeling very much with this freshman team. I would have liked to see Archie try that lineup again. I really liked it in the Tennessee Tech game with 4 freshmen and Trayce or Race in the case of this game, because I felt like the ball moved a lot better in that game with those guys. But yeah, it's an exciting team to see and game time nightmare and as far as minutes for Archie this year to figure out.
Jerod, your thoughts on the freshmen as they continue to add depth to the Indiana roster?
Yeah, I thought, Geronimo was what you would expect from Geronimo. Made a couple plays. That rebound was great, but also his very first possession in there, he got in Armaan Franklin's way when Armaan was trying to drive into the lane. And you're going to get some stuff like that, but he plays hard, and he was in there on that when they got that 5-second call that got everybody excited. Trey's a guy that we haven't talked about a lot today, but, obviously everybody's loving watching him play. And there's a couple of things, Coach, that he does that I just love. One is when he gets the ball on the wing, his first thought is, how quickly can I get to the basket? And he drives in there like his life depends on it. Like he's being chased by a lion or a tiger or something. And maybe it's the fact that his hair is flopping, but it looks like he's using every ounce of energy he has to get into the lane as quickly as possible. But while he does that, he also stays aware of what's going on around him. And he is showing a really good ability to locate shooters and be able to deliver a pass to them. And so you'll see him kind of do, you see that in the NBA a lot where guys drive in and they kind of do that whip around pass, and he can find a guy. And so, if guys are ready and can make shots, he's going to get some assists that way.
Now,
so
he does make me nervous with that. I'm gonna cut in like Ryan. He does make me nervous with that I'm scared he's going to get caught in the air one of these times. He's been lucky with it. Like you said, he whips around, he finds that person, but I'm scared that in the future now that's going to bite him in the butt a little bit because he's going to get caught up in the air with nowhere to go.
Maybe. I mean, that happened to Yogi a few times when he was young, but I just think Trey he's one of our smartest players already. I mean, he is consistently in the right place, making smart decisions. I don't fear that as much. He will make some mistakes. But I think he shows not a lot of guys can do that because not a lot of guys can see the court when they're driving that hard. And he can. And that's part of what I think, makes him a special young player. Obviously the shot isn't there yet. I think it'll come. But, Coach, what really makes me excited about our bench with Lander, with Hunter, with Galloway is, our starting lineup, especially when we start like we did today with Al, Armaan, Rob, Trayce, and Race. Those guys, I've kind of used this term probers. You've got a lot of probers there. Armaan will sometimes take off and attack the basket. Al will every now and then. But those guys are very content to run the offense. They're very patient. And that's good. Again, today against Providence, where they weren't playing very good defense and patience was going to lead them into a mistake, that can be good. But then when we go to our bench, we've got guys whose first thought when they get the ball is attack. And that's a nice change of pace to be able to have. If the offense is a little bit stagnant, you can go to a Lander, you can go to a Galloway, go to a Hunter. They're going to come in and make something happen. And I think more often than not, it's going to be something good, even though those guys struggled to score today. They just give you a different energy. And I like that when you have a difference between your starters and your bench, where there's just like almost a different mentality that they have, a different energy that they bring to it. That's what you want coming off the bench. And so, you would get that every now and then with a Devontae Green, but I think you're going to get that more consistently with these guys, especially Galloway, who to me, maybe he ends up starting, but I think as a freshman, he profiles as the perfect sixth man to just come in and start.
Genuinely positive guy.
And I will say, the last thing I will say about him, nice job there, Chad, throwing in the drop. The last thing I will say about Galloway, and I've made this point on Twitter. I haven't had a chance to make it on the show yet. People have been tossing around all these comparisons to Galloway, Will Sheehy and Steve Isle and Randy Whitman, and like all these names of, past white Indiana players are being tossed about with Galloway. And I understand why. The guy that I can't get out of my head when I watch him play is freshman year Victor Oladipo. Just a ball of energy, seems a little bit out of control at times, 1 for 6 shooting, the shot's not there, but competitive as heck, attacks the basket with ferocity, and just makes stuff happen. And I know whenever someone makes that comparison, there's like 8 tons of baggage that come with it. I'm not saying anything about the future. I'm just saying watching him right now, that's who I keep thinking about. And I'm really, really pleased with what he brings. And I think he's going to be a guy that's going to impact every single game because he gets in there, makes smart plays, plays hard, and attacks.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think the inability to go downhill the first 3 years of Archie's tenure has been a problem. And now you have some guys coming off the bench, especially Galloway. But he drives with an understanding of where people should be. If people are in the right spots when he drives, he knows, even if he doesn't see, he has that understanding. And he's going to be able to draw fouls. He's going to be able to make other players better with open shots. He's going to be able to finish, as we've already seen. So the freshmen will help, and they've helped already in Indiana's 2-0 start to the season. But it's time now to preview Indiana's upcoming opponent, which will be tomorrow, where Indiana will take on the Texas Longhorns in the semifinal of the Maui Asheville Classic at 1:30 in the afternoon. An afternoon game for the semifinal doesn't make much sense, but we're playing in the semifinals. It's a lot better than playing in the losers bracket at 7 o'clock. So a couple things. I'm not Andy Bottoms. Andy Bottoms has all the knowledge about these teams. I only can tell you if they've won or lost and should be in the bracket. But Andy does a great job on the preview. But names to watch: Andrew Jones. And Greg Brown is a 5-star freshman. They returned 5 starters, and they're in a year where Shaka Smart needs to produce. So this is going to be a big game for them to get on their resume. They haven't made the tournament for a while. It's a couple programs that really need good wins. And so this will be one where the length of Texas and the athleticism of Texas will be a little different than what we saw tonight here at Providence. But you're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. Remember to check out Home Field Apparel's Black Friday sale. Use the promo code BF Assembly Call at checkout to get 30% off your entire order at homefieldapparel.com. Okay, guys, it's time for the last call. And Ched, your thoughts as we end the show.
Yeah, I'm just excited we get to watch IU play for 2 more days. I mean, we go such a drought, such a disappointing offseason and everything, and here we get 3 games in a row. And today's game was going to be that one of how are they going to line up against a team that's a little bit better, a team that's defensively known. How's the offense going to handle it? And who's going to show up for us, and how's our defense going to do? And I think all those boxes ended in the positive for this game. So it proves to be a good rest of the tournament. So something exciting to look forward to. I'm going to be there every time watching and cheering them on. Crazy times be or not, I will be there watching. So very exciting. Excited to see who shows up next game, and maybe we'll get a few minutes from Joey Brunk and get him in there as well. And yeah. Go Hoosiers.
I think this was a really important win for program momentum. Things haven't really broken the Hoosiers' way in the first 3 years, and to end up in a losers bracket would have just been a little negativity that could have had some long-term effects. Now you're in the winners bracket against some ranked teams. Yes, you want to win. Losses will always hurt, but it's good to be in that winners bracket. Jerod, your last thoughts on today's performance?
Well, I just want to say, as you prepare for the Texas game tomorrow, if you did not watch the Texas game today or see the images floating around on social media, Shaka Smart has hair, and it is very disorienting. So I just want you to prepare yourself for that, because you're not going to know who that is over on the sideline over there. Interesting number, the KenPom numbers have updated. Indiana currently, and again, it's only through 2 games, but Indiana's average possession length right now is 16.4 seconds. And Coach, we talked all offseason about how Indiana wanted to play faster. And that's about 1 second faster than Indiana's played on average under Archie Miller. Now, some of that is influenced by playing Tennessee Tech, so I wouldn't put too much into that number. But I think it does kind of match what we're seeing with our eyes. Indiana is playing, trying to play faster, push it a little bit more. And so we'll see, where that number ends up this season. But the other number that's interesting is Indiana's 14th in KenPom right now. And I know early season KenPom doesn't mean that much because you got a lot of the offseason numbers in there. But this is the high water mark for Indiana under Archie Miller. The last time that they were this high was, or the highest they've been before this is 16th after the Marquette game, Romeo's freshman year. And of course, they would go on to lose at Arkansas after that. And so this is the highest that Indiana has been. Do I think that this is the best team or the best Indiana has played under Archie? I don't know. We haven't seen this team enough. But I know that I'm as excited about this team probably as I've been since that early game against Marquette, when you think about it, because everything seemed possible. Early Romeo, They played so well in that game. What's different about this team is obviously just the depth of talent. It feels like you can really go to every single player out there, and that guy is a legit Big Ten basketball player, even if some of the guys are young. And so, to your point, Coach, I do agree that it's a big momentum win for Indiana early in the season. Think back to the last time Indiana was in Maui in the 2015-2016 season. They played terrible at Maui, and it felt like it took them a month to dig out of the hole, and they eventually went on to win the Big Ten, but it really just set the stage for a really bad November and December. And here, you could lose one or two of these next two games, but you still feel okay about what happened. And this was a dominant performance against, a decent to solid team. So a lot to like about today, especially with Trayce Thompson. And, the last thing I just want to say, Coach, is to reiterate what you said about, Bill Murphy earlier in the show. Bill lost his wife, which is just terribly sad and tragic news. And Bill has been so generous with us in this show, coming on Podcast on the Brink. Every time I go up to Bloomington, I make a point to stop and see him because he always has something nice to say, something kind to say. And no one knows more about Indiana sports and Indiana sports history than Bill Murphy. So, if you can go on Twitter and just share a kind word for him, I think his Twitter account is @WilliamMurphy2. You can go to our Assembly Call account, and we retweeted the tweet that he sent out earlier. But just obviously a tragic weekend for his family, and our thoughts go out to him. And also to, just want to send up a good word to Mike Penix too, Indiana's quarterback who's out for the season. Just such a talented player. The body just isn't cooperating for him right now, but we know he's got a lot of football ahead of him, once that happens. But really good day for Indiana basketball today, winning this game, and excited to see what they can do tomorrow against Texas.
And thanks go out to you, Jerod, for joining us, and Chad for joining us this afternoon as we recapped Indiana's 79-58 win over Providence. And we look forward to the game against Texas tomorrow afternoon at 1:30. So that'll do it for our show this afternoon. For the Assembly Call postgame show, if you want to see us do the live show and be part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/assemblycall.com. And don't forget to go to assemblycall.com or text IU to 66866 to join our free email newsletter. Special thanks to longtime listener Bob Thompson, who produced much of the music you hear on the show. And thank you for listening. We'll be back to talk IU hoops again with you on Thursday night. Until then,
take it from me, Yogi Ferrell. Keep your elbows in and your eyes on the rim. And go Hoosiers.
Thank everybody for coming out.
All right, I got to get out of here, folks. Thank you.
All right, that'll do it.
All right.
Kind of messed up the timing there at the end with my soundboard and Yogi's thing, but pretty good.
All good.
It's fun to have winning shows and good play for the most part.
It is fun to do. All right, so I'm definitely out for tomorrow.
I'm in for the next 14 days.
You're in. So, Chad, are you available tomorrow?
Yeah, possibly. Let me check something, but I'll text you.
Okay, yeah. Thanks for hopping in today, and I'll see what Ryan's situation is.
Yeah,
but yeah,
we use "we" here on this show. We're
Hey, how's it feel to be on the receiving end of those drops?
Yeah, my timing was a bit off.
Not what I'm used to.
My timing is a bit off. I thought you were taking a breath there, but you didn't. So
we try to color in the shades of gray on this show. I think
we do. We do try. Mm-hmm. Try to dive into the nuance here.
I think that's the good one to have, and I like
cranky.
I'm cranky.
I am cranky.
Not today.
No.
Not after this game.
Not at all. Thanks, Chat Mob. I don't get a chance to follow along with you guys as much when I'm pushing the buttons, but I assume you had a good time in there.
Oh, no, Jeff, to answer your question, we will definitely have a show for sure. Coach is here. So if Coach has to host solo, he'll be doing it. So just the rest of us, I'm definitely going to be out, and we'll see about Ryan. But
yeah, not to get too much information. I have to stay home for a few days due to COVID. I don't have it, but contact Trayce today, so I'm home. So I will be on the show.
I mean, if it's going to happen, Maui week, I guess, is
not bad. It's like scheduling a vasectomy for the NCAA tournament week.
Yep.
Might as well get it done and be able to stay at home. It's all about scheduling.
Yes, it is. All right, everybody.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
See you guys.
We'll see you. Peace.